As the New York Mets find themselves perched near the top of the National League early this season, the obvious question presents itself. Is it the raw power of Pete Alonso driving the team forward, or has the real story been written on the mound? With arms like Jose Butto, Max Kranick, and Huascar Brazoban stepping up in a major way, there's growing reason to believe the Mets' success might be less about the home run and more about the heat. Let's not pretend this wasn't a surprise. Entering spring training, the Mets' pitching situation raised more red flags than green lights. Two projected starters were already down with injuries, and skepticism loomed large. But somehow, this staff, which on paper looked average, is not only holding its own, but actively carrying the team. And that's no small feat. The Mets player development team deserves serious recognition. Names that once looked like afterthoughts on a depth chart are now proving they have the stuff to dominate at the highest level. Clay Holmes and Griffin Canning, two pitchers who many assumed would merely eat innings until reinforcements arrived, have instead shown flashes of brilliance. Canning in particular is a turnaround story that speaks volumes about the Mets' so-called pitching lab. Let's not forget, he led the league in earned runs last season. This year, he's looking like someone you'd be comfortable giving the ball to in Game 1 of a playoff series. And speaking of turnarounds, how about Tyler McGill? The right-hander has quietly assembled a 9-start run of complete control dating back to last season. Always possessing the tools, McGill now appears to have found the polish. He's locating better, keeping hitters off balance, and most importantly, getting outs when it counts. Of course, the Mets are still waiting on more reinforcements. Kodai Senga made his season debut with the kind of command and composure that made him last year's breakout ace, and he's only expected to get stronger as his comfort and conditioning improve. Meanwhile, Sean Mananea and Frankie Montas, two experienced arms, are working their way back and could provide much-needed relief to a staff already logging heavy innings. But perhaps the most promising sign lies just one step away from the majors. Top prospects Brandon Sproat and Blade Tidwell are both on the cusp at AAA. Either could step into a rotation spot if needed, giving the Mets a level of pitching depth that many teams can only dream of. In a league where bullpen games and openers have become the norm, the Mets might just be zigging where everyone else is zagging. David Stearns, the architect behind this overhaul, deserves credit. With a reputation for assembling cost-effective, deep pitching staffs, he has once again delivered. The rotation, while statistically middle of the pack, currently ranking somewhere between 15th and 20th, could easily push into the top 10 if the development staff continues enhancing the tools these pitchers bring. But it's not just the starters. The bullpen has quietly evolved into a key strength. With Kranick and Brazoban providing multi-inning relief, Carlos Mendoza has been handed a versatile arsenal of arms capable of bridging the gap between starter and closer with efficiency. Mendoza has shown an exceptional feel for bullpen management, consistently making the right call, whether it's asking for more than 3 outs or knowing when to turn to a hot hand. Still, this approach has a downside. The over-reliance on relievers due to starters not regularly going past 5 or 6 innings is something that could become an issue as the summer grind begins. Long innings and short outings create stress on the bullpen. Unless Holmes and Canning can consistently give you 6 or more, the strain could start to show. That said, the days of starters cruising through the lineup 3 times are fading fast. Teams now trust their bullpen depth more than a fatigued starter. And why not? Most relievers today are armed with 98-mile-per-hour fastballs and wipeout sliders. While the data supports the theory, hitters fare much better against starters the 3rd time through the order. In the words of Ron Darling, most young pitchers simply aren't given the opportunity to pitch out of trouble anymore. They're yanked at the first sign of danger, and while that's efficient in the short term, it does raise long-term developmental concerns. But enough about the arms, let's talk defense. And unfortunately, that's where the conversation takes a dip. The Mets' fielding has been, quite frankly, a mess. Francisco Lindor, the team's defensive anchor, had a 2-error game. Mark Vientos continues to look lost at times, committing careless mistakes. Brett Baty, once viewed as a future cornerstone, misfired on a pivotal play against Miami. Even the typically reliable Juan Soto has had lapses in the outfield, while Jose Siri and Tyrone Taylor have been anything but consistent. This isn't just a slump, it's a fundamental issue. The Mets simply do not have the personnel to be a top-tier defensive team. Vientos and Soto, for all their potential at the plate, are likely to be net negatives in the field. That's acceptable to a point if they're ranking, but when the mental mistakes pile up, it becomes a problem that demands attention. The bats haven't exactly caught fire either. Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, and Luis Torrens have carried the offense so far, but they're working with minimal backup. Lindor is off to yet another sluggish start. Soto looks uncomfortable, taking some of the ugliest swings of his career. Vientos is chasing everything in sight, while the second base platoon has made little progress at the plate. Still, there's hope. It's early. There's time. Alonso, in particular, looks locked in. He's not chasing pitches out of the zone, showing a patience we didn't see last year. With free agency looming, this could be the year he posts MVP-level numbers in pursuit of the contract he didn't get last offseason. Then there's Vientos. To be blunt, he looks lost. On top of his fielding miscues, he's making mental errors on the base paths and showing questionable hustle. 1 or 2 slip-ups are forgivable. 4 or 5? That's a trend, and a troubling one. Brett Baty's situation is nearing a breaking point. While we're only a few weeks into the season, Baty has yet to make meaningful contact or look comfortable in the field. His lone major moment nearly turned into a disaster, salvaged only by Torrens. The player who dazzled in spring training is nowhere to be found. And with Jeff McNeil set to return soon, Baty's time could be running out fast. On the flip side, Luis Torrens has been nothing short of elite. Offensively, he's been one of the Mets' most consistent bats. Defensively, his arm has been jaw-dropping, arguably the best a Mets catcher has shown in years. He's not just playing well, he's setting a new standard. All in all, it's been mostly a positive start to the Mets campaign, driven not by offense, but by a deep, surprisingly effective pitching staff. The lineup will likely wake up soon, but if the arms can keep performing like this, they've brought the offense all the time it needs. And before we wrap up, a quick glance at the past shows how far the organization has come. A decade ago, the Mets' top prospect list reads like a cautionary tale. Names like Zach Wheeler, Matt Harvey, and Jerry's Familia all brought promise, but most met disappointment. Today, the narrative is shifting. This is no longer a franchise that depends on 1 or 2 stars. It's a deep, flexible, forward-thinking organization building from the mound up. What do you think? Is this Mets rotation the real deal, or are we due for a summer swoon? Let us know your take, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the season ahead.